I wanted to share a dream that I had. Okay. There was this strange blob-like creature, and it was trapped in a cage. And for some reason, it had the ability to mimic any voice that it wanted. And I was there with a group of people. I didn't recognise any of them, but I recognised one person and that was Kelsey, and she was there. And she said it had a name, and she called it the NuJuJui, which was NuJuJui. Anyway, later it managed to get out, and any person that it touched, it would infect somehow. And then later on, the scene would move to an apocalyptic setting, and I was in this shelter with other people, and we were hoarding food and such like. And then there was an event, and on every horizon, in every part of the world, a strange blue light appeared. Then it was followed by some sort of weird device that seemed to be intent on destroying us all. And sort of thinking about the dream, I was sort of imagining the imprisoned blob to maybe represent possibly limiting and destructive ideas, and demonstrating how hard it is to keep them locked down, which is like the endless battle with the personal self. Then possibly the part 2 in the apocalyptic setting was demonstrating the destructive quality of these ideas unleashed, and the potential to cause apocalyptic worlds if enough people continue choosing ideas and subconsciously agreeing to the destruction. And the weirdest part of it, I thought, the part that really stuck in my mind, was the name of the blob, as I said, which was the NuJuJui, which was quite strange.
Okay, so we have Kelsey here, and she gets to explain this now.
Thank you, Kevin, for including me in your experience and giving me this opportunity to talk. So, Kevin, that's great. I don't know. The NuJuJui, like the blob, and what's the movie? The green blob? Flubber. What happened in that movie? Did Flubber take over or something? I don't know. Thank you, Kevin. I'll give it back over to you and Duane. For Claudie's here too. Henry, Val.
Claudie can say something. Yes, Claudie, say something.
Wow, what a wonderful experience. And I think you're bringing in new information that will be helpful, but I don't know where or when. Just that it's a very different viewpoint. It gives us a chance to look at our lives and see where that little piece of the puzzle belongs. So that's how I see it. Piece of the puzzle, and you're looking at it, and you'll recognize the spot it goes in, but it will take time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I remember in the dream that the main part of it was I took special pains to really remember the name, as though I felt it was quite important, sort of thing. So I really focused on it, and when I woke up, I ensured that I wrote it down and had the spelling correct and everything. So, yeah. Okay. Anyway, yeah, I was more thinking along the lines of the blob with Steve McQueen, really, and thinking what he would have done with it, sort of thing. But yeah, I suppose Flubber is a more recent thing, I guess. Okay, I had a question. Yeah, on the last Skype, Duane, you were speaking about how even if the mechanism by which a person or species thrill seeks is removed, through emotional suppression or vehicle modification, because without real awareness, they will, and you were saying without real awareness, they will simply seek another distraction or idea to chase in creation. And you gave the example of a smoker who quits and then sort of turns to eating. And then I was thinking of this third option, and it was like it was going back to like a robotic vehicle. And but I was thinking more in terms of being in a robotic vehicle, but with the intent to become more aware. And in a robotic vehicle, you would be absent of all the desires associated with a biological vehicle, and you could like program yourself to restrict all unnecessary ideas and thoughts. And in that state, you would have bypassed the emotional and the emotional stumbling blocks, and could even program yourself to ensure you'll do nothing to replace the thrill chasing that you once did. And I was thinking, if that was the case and you were in that form, it may in fact be a perfect vehicle and place to become more aware and recognise the all is.
Well, again, it's your adventure. So, like anything, you decide. It's all through your decision. We're all in life, and every moment we're deciding something. And now you're more conscious. You're more aware of what you're deciding. So again, you decide what to activate and how to do that. And that's one way to do it. Yes, that's one way. And you'll find out through that, what the end result will be. So there is a difference between things in creation that we do and what we do in creation that relates to the all is and our awareness. So again, it's your choice. So you can do whatever you want, and you'll figure it out, etc. So yeah, at least you're attempting something. See, that becomes it. You see these, just like myself coming through the corporation, many other people, and many people have come through things. They were grown up with religion or whatever. Most people are, and it becomes a standard, a way of living, a thought, idea that they just go along with it. So for the most part, through their lives, there's that part of themselves that is just thinking, well, the place is bad, or I'm growing old, or I'm not as cute as the next person, or whatever it is, or I don't have as much money or whatever, but God will take care of me. You see, this is really a passive idea is what it is. And it really takes the person nowhere, because there's nothing but the individual awareness. Okay, so it's not that someone's going to take care of you, etc. When you're in your real awareness in the real universes, which is all here now here, is that you're supported by what life is, instead of struggling to be supported by the personal self that you think is the only reality there is. So how you go about this, that's up to you. How you go about recognizing this and doing whatever you do, that is up to you. And so again, and life will continue to give you hints while you're here, because there's always more to see. It's really about being as objective as you can, to where eventually you don't need this personal relationship anymore. Okay? And it's not going to just happen. The boys aren't going to do it for you. There's no such thing. This is again where, this is where the people with the corporation, I use the corporation, Joni's Takeover Corporation as example, they're all passive. They're thinking that Harry, has a mission, and that his mission is going to take care of everything for everybody. Well, that's passive. And that's not how it is. And that's not how it is here either, especially with what is going on, and that is learning to recognize and then activating something that makes sense while you're in creation. That's why you're here. And through that activation, when it relates to the isness, this is how you might say you were granted the awareness to see more. This is how you earn it, not by the very fact that you know it. You're reading about it and it's like, oh, okay, now I know about the is. Well, It's like buying a new car. You get the owner's manual, you're reading it, but the car doesn't drive because you can read the manual. You have to activate that. You have to get in the car and you have to drive it around. That becomes the reality there. And the same thing with this. You got to figure out how to activate this. And so many people are prompted, but they still don't get it. And so they're thinking along the lines of you might say the God idea before, where you're passive and God will take care of it, the master will take care of it, or something like this. You see, and it's not so. And so just looking at the sun as an example, it demonstrates the isness life is, and the sun shines upon everybody. But it can do nothing for anybody, you see? And so if the plants don't come out of the ground, sun can't make them green. They must decide to activate themselves to grow to be trees and plants and flowers, so they can become green or whatever, affected by the sun, so it can do its part too. And this is how the whole of life is. And so you're on your adventure, and so using the knowledge of what I've created here, that's what you do. You use that, you pivot from that, and eventually you don't even need that anymore. Just like the owner's manual for your car, you know how to drive it. You see, you've activated, and so you activate your adventure in a particular way. But many people, they activate it along the lines of the personal self, thinking that, I'm doing this and I'm going to travel the world and I'm going to meet different people and I'm going to do this and that. Well, that's fine, but that's still not it. There's more to it until it is the reason that we're here. We'll use the idea of reason is to recognize the is. It's not about coming here and getting a good job and finding your soulmate and all these things that we've created. It has nothing to do with any of that. These are just things that are taking place that have been decided. All of it has. And so we are in creation, but now you've come to that point where you know that there's more. And so you activate your real adventure with along the lines of what makes sense with the whole of life, you see? So you decide that. So however you do it, that's up to you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I don't particularly want to be a robot, but I was but it's actually an idea that Gwen actually popped into my head earlier. She said, she was saying on one of the Skypes how you're saying it might take 100 years or 1,000 years to recognise the is and your real awareness. And I was thinking along the lines, were that the case? And if people were sort of developing their awareness and they sort of passed on, but they had to come back and they found themselves in a robot body, because again, the future seems to seems to have everybody being robotized in the future. I was sort of imagining if you would be able to continue with the developing of your awareness in that sort of state as a robot, and I sort of you sort of see sort of depictions of that in sort of robot films, where I can imagine you see the robots in the films breaking their programming sort of thing and going on a rampage and stuff like that. And I can imagine those are the robots maybe that sort of like are the aware humans trapped in robotic vehicles, and that's sort of like them demonstrating their urge to sort of continue on with their awareness by breaking programming and doing that.
Well, in a way, see, we're all robots here. See, everything is a routine, and so it's robotic. Even in nature, the animals and whatever, they have routines, and they're robotic. So, it's the idea that scares people. You see, it's like, oh, gee, we won't be human anymore. Well, realistically, what is a human? You see? It's just made up of agreements and routines. That's all it is. So what does it matter if you're in a robot body like Iron Man or not? You see? And it's just like when you're in your car, are you afraid? It's like, oh, gee, I'm in a robot. Yeah, your car's a robot, and etc. Everything's robotic. It's not about that. It's not about redoing anything. It's about becoming more aware. that's the best part. See, that's where your real freedom is. It's not about setting yourself in a new routine or being afraid of the routines that exist, because it's all about recognizing your real awareness, and beyond any freedom that you can imagine, that's the best part, you see? So creation is what it is. It's just a thing. That's all it is. It's something, all right? Who can say what it is when we're experiencing it? And this is so funny, too. And so, see, we are psychologically provided with ideas that you might say entrap us. And you see them in the movies all the time. You know, you see them in these science fiction movies to where, oh, yeah, just like the idea. Yeah. See, the deceptors are thinking that, okay, we'll make people more robotic so that we can control them. Realistically, with the real awareness, that's not so. They cannot touch the real awareness. But for those that agree to the system and, you know, a particular way, people are already robots. They got their cell phones. They're walking down the street. They don't even know where they're going. They're already robotized. It's not a matter of having a robot body, because it's the awareness that operates that body. But if the bodies become so robotized they don't need the awareness, then they're robots, but they can have any awareness anyhow. So they've already got robots. So it's not about that. And the time element of recognizing that's again up to the individual. But just being realistic with it, and that is that people think just because they read something, it's like, oh, okay, I know what this is, and you know, oh, I know that now. No, that's not even close to what it is. And there's such a and there's no time involved because it's a nowness, but time comes in according to the personal self and its relationship and your relationship with it. So, you know, you really become a real explorer here to figure all these things out. And it's only us, each one of us, doing that. So, the planet's already robotized. It's already netted in. It's already Wi-Fi'd. It's already harped. It's already all these things. And people are more than willing to continue their routines, and especially chasing money and being a part of the business world. This is a robotized world. I mean, all we have is asphalt and buildings and cell phones and electrical this and that, etc. Electrical, everything's automatic, etc. You got computers. It's already robotized. It's not a matter of the body type that you have a human body or not. This is all agreement. So you see the difference. It's all creation. Your body, the machines you have, the chair you're sitting on, the table you're at, the Skype we're using, it's all the same thing. It just appears differently. It's all about your awareness. Life is about awareness. And so we go through creation until we figure out the isness. And so something has to become available in a way, just like Paul started it, but that is the old days now. It really doesn't work anymore. There can be a relationship there, but just even because people have the guidance doesn't mean they recognize it. You know, many of these people in the corporation around the world have guidance and they're going through it, but they still don't recognize the bigger picture. So the boys can't make them do that, so they will continue on because for the most part, most people's personal life and their ideas come first. You know, it's like the old saying, like you see a famous person, they're so popular that people think, oh my gosh, they're bigger than life. Well, what's bigger than life is the idea that they have about themselves and others have the idea about them that they block out any of their awareness to recognize what life is. So, you know, again, you have all these viewpoints, and that's what they are. And so in creation, you're allowed to have many more viewpoints that give you objectivity. And one of the biggest hurdles is that when you become self-convinced, you see, because the reality of life is there is nothing that you can consider that it is. It is not that. You see, so what is it? But many people become self-convinced. It's like, oh, well, I already know this. I have this, you know, I have this communication or whatever. And so that doesn't mean you recognize it. Yes, you can have the communication, you can have the dreams with the real guides, but that's just the step. That's not the end result. There's so much more that is not seen, because the total of life, the true reality life is invisible, and it is awareness. And so, yes, creation is of a particular, and you see that every moment and every thought and idea, etc., it becomes whatever it does according to you. See, it's all you, no one else. So, yes, you decide your adventure, you decide your journey.
Okay, thank you, Duane. That'll be the end of the robots for now anyway, questions about robots. Yeah, I was listening on a Skype the other day. I was listening, and Charles was saying about deactivated junk DNA, and I had a little ponder about that. And I was thinking, why is it that that the human vehicles do have deactivated and junk DNA, and why they have untapped brain capacity? Because we only use about, I don't know what it is, 10% of our brains or something. Because some other researchers were putting forth the idea that we were in fact downgraded as opposed to created, and then this, they say, would explain the excess DNA that we don't use and the brains that we don't fully utilise. But obviously, we know now that we were in fact created, as you have told us. But I was thinking why the physical body, or if vehicles were created as sort of like a slave species, why they would be created with all this untapped potential, or does that possibly, or I suppose maybe we were possibly then downgraded perhaps somewhere further down the line, perhaps.
I find that term downgraded very interesting as opposed to creation. So that's a oxymoron, isn't it? That's a quaggle there. So again, who decided that? See, again, where do these things come from? I'm going to give a little funny example. When I first started getting into the computers, I had several. I even had a friend of mine who helped me a lot. He was an engineer. He built one for me. Well, I let my daughter use 2 of these computers, and she basically annihilated them, because all she did is download a bunch of nonsense on them. So again, when they're talking about, oh, gee, you have so much more capacity with your mind and brain, look at yourself right now. And the idea is, scientifically, that is, you're listening to the so-called experts of the world, okay, and they know everything, and these are the people destroying the world purposely and unconsciously. This is who you're listening to. So they're saying that you use, and that's an old term, you use about 10% and you've got all this 90% capacity. So multiply what you know and what you're aware of and what you do times 10, and can you handle that every day? Could you handle that?
Probably not.
Probably not. You see, do you want to go full capacity? You see? So it's nice to have some room, just like your computer. You've got, 10 gigs or whatever. Do you want to try and go for 11 gigs on the computer to see if it'll handle it? So it's basically built for what it's built. And just like a car, it can only go so fast. Well, then you start redlining it, don't you? You want to do that, then you blow up the engine, don't you? So, this stuff is talked about, but you know why it's so talked about? Look at who's talking about it. It's another marketing ploy to get you to buy a vitamin or take a course or whatever, and you're going to fill your brain capacity up with more knowledge and stuff that you really don't know what to do with, and does it even relate to your personal life, you see? So again, take a look at who's saying these things, and really, what is it all about? Does it make sense, even in a senseless world that doesn't make sense? So, but again, you decide. And so look at the people that have filled their minds up with all this stuff. You know what? All of a sudden, just like you see in the movies are a good example. All of a sudden, they take these energy pills, or they do something, or like the Hulk as an example. When When he doesn't feel good, he gets irate, and then he turns into this big giant guy that wants to beat up everybody. So, in other words, in full brain capacity, what's the idea? All of a sudden, oh, gee, I have all this energy. What can I do with it? Oh, now I can pick people up and throw them across the street. You know, it usually leads to self-destruction, doesn't it? You know, people can't even handle their lives as they are, but yet they're chasing ideas thinking that they need more. Just like, you know, the cell phones and whatever. Look at the capacity to download whatever. Now you can download 10 million tunes and 50,000 movies. I mean, can you really contain all that stuff until you're totally nuts? Because it's mainly all subliminal. So realistically, look at the world and what makes sense compared to your real awareness and the knowledge you have to relate to all this. So do you really want more in your brain? I would say less is better. But that's just me. Okay, so leave room for the awareness. Do they talk about the real awareness? No, they just talk about stuff and your DNA and all these things. Again, that's all created stuff. Is life about DNA just because the scientists say that? I don't see the birds talking about DNA. I've never heard them talking about DNA.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that clears it up. Yeah, thank you very much for that. Yeah, because the next part of my question was along similar lines, but I think it's been answered on this and other Skypes. It was about how utilising the untapped brain capacity and DNA would possibly allow for supernatural abilities. And but as you said on another Skype, I think it was, that the brain has nothing to do with such abilities, and that it's awareness that allows us access to the higher levels, including the ethereal level, which would be the seat of psychic phenomena. So obviously, a bigger brain would simply mean just more memory and storage space, I suppose, like a computer.
Well, again, what you have is, you know, you have your little car that you drive around the town, and then you look at the military, it's got these gigantic tanks. Okay, so now once you're in that gigantic tank, okay, what would be your attitude? All right. Are you going to be friendly to your neighbors, or maybe because you're a little bored sometimes, you're going to maybe run over their front lawn and leave a few tread tracks there, you know, just for the fun of it, just to show them that, you know, yours is bigger. You see what happens, just like in the movies, you know, people want the knowledge, they want the power idea, etc. And they're thinking that, oh, well, I'll save the world or something. But it's going to be according to them, isn't it? And you see it all the time. And that is that, just like the old saying, you know, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. So it's not about that. It's really about awareness. And that becomes the toughie for people to see, especially in this world, because it's been set up for people to be literalized. One-dimensionally literalized, but they're thinking in the multi-dimension of cyberspace, which is really a trap. It's a setup, virtual reality, because that's all it is. It's another position to where people become confused, and so the power aspect is the same. And you see it in the business world as people go into the, you know, work for companies or whatever. They want to so-called climb the corporate ladder, is the old saying. And what happens is then they take over, they manipulate, there's competition, etc. All this stuff is nonsense. You don't see it anywhere. There are other ways to do things, but you've got to be creative to figure it out. So when these things are brought about to the public, you know what the controllers want to see? They want to see people chase these ideas to incorporate these things, and then they're going to watch the cockfight to where everybody competes like the Olympics, you see? This competition to where they destroy each other eventually. And it all comes to that. It all does. And so all these things were created. You know, everything that we're experiencing, you might say, has come from the Roman Colosseum days. You got football, you got the Olympics, you got all these sports and whatever. Oh, they look so cute. But it's all this competition, and there's a lot of emotion. There's a lot of like and dislike and whatever, and there's no attention on the individual's real awareness and becoming more aware and making sense of this world. but constantly creating things that destroy the environment that people are in, to where they're so old and distorted they can't remember that they were ever here. So again, what makes sense of all of it? You see? It takes a lot to figure it out, doesn't it?
Okay, yes. Thank you, Duane.